From David Zwirner, this is Dialogues, a podcast about artists and the way they think.
I was able to project myself into these worlds and galvanize support via the funk to be like my most ideal self. And it's the power of the funk, the holy funk with the capital F.
I think it's the same plane because I couldn't analyze it at first, but I go out of my way to relate to the next generation.
I'm Helen Molesworth, your host for this season. Every episode features a conversation with artists, curators, writers, designers, philosophers, filmmakers, and musicians about what it means to make things today. Hey everybody, it's Helen here, and I'm so excited to be back for another season hosting Dialogues. When I learned that the legendary George Clinton of Parliament-Funkadelic was good friends with the Los Angeles-based artist Lauren Halsey, I immediately knew that I wanted to invite them onto the podcast. Not least because they're both totally brilliant, but also because they are a good 4 decades apart. And there is something truly extraordinary about an intergenerational friendship, how influence moves in both directions, and the exchange of ideas can metabolize into something totally new. I had so much fun making this episode, and I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, everybody. It's Helen Molesworth here. I am with Lauren Halsey and George Clinton. I know that the two of you have struck up a friendship, and I'm really interested in it because it's cross-generational, cross-disciplinary, and I wanted to talk to you, Lauren, maybe if you could start. I know I've heard you talk a little bit like on the fly about your fascination with Clinton and Funkadelic.
Yeah, it's a really deep thing for me. I mean, it's the deepest thing. And so, I mean, I have a very long history with Parliament, introduced to me by via my father, via my cousin Rico, who just were music heads, who had their own like really beautiful taste in funk. It was very P-funk. And so driving home from school, I was listening to Aqua Boogie. Um, the halftime during the Raiders game, South Central in the 90s, we're hearing Gaming on Ya. My father trying to teach me a lesson. He's like riffing off of Parliament lyrics. And I could remember when, and sorry, George, this is like, I should have bought it, but I didn't have the means as a kid. But I could remember when downloading music came out and everyone in school, like me, 12, 13-year-olds, we first get the internet, we download LimeWire, and all of a sudden you can type in someone's name and you can get their entire catalog. So the risk is like crashing your computer and like ruining this like beautiful vessel that your parents spent all this money on for you, like do your homework. And I typed in Parliament-Funkadelic. And this is pre-YouTube, so there weren't visuals yet, at least for me. And it just like it tripped me out, and the analogies were so complex between the placemaking on Earth to non-linear worlds of Egypt and underwater to Chocolate City. And it was this space as like a very emo, sad, I had joy 100%, but emo, sad kid. I was able to project myself into these worlds and galvanize support via the funk to be like my most ideal self. And it's the power of the funk, the holy funk with the capital F. So that was just like a thing. And like I know, for a fact, of course I'm interested in remixing and sampling space because of like my biography, but a lot of it has to do with Parliament-Funkadelic. And that's my career now. It's a huge anchor for my career and my heart and who I am. It carried me to the Hammer Museum Project, which was a remix of the Trimpopulation album where I was introduced to George via our friend Flea, who George deeply collaborated with. Yeah, he comes to the show at the Hammer and he's like, "Oh, Lauren, this is tight. Has George seen this?" And I'm like, "No, of course he hasn't." He doesn't even know I exist. He's like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna let him know. He's in town." I already knew he was in town because I was gonna go to the show. Or at this point, I've been to like fucking 18 shows or something. And he's like, he's gonna come and see it. And I was like, oh, that's like so nice of him to say. And that was enough for me. So I go home, I'm talking to Monique about it. And I was like, Flea's gonna tell George. And then we make it home, and Flea says, come back to the Hammer. George is on the way. And I was like, oh shit, I got to change my outfit. And I go back and I'm like in it, and I turn around and it's just like George and Carlon and Norwood just like, beamed down. And I think it was like that was it.
That's an amazing story. So, George, when you get there, Flea calls you, you show up, there's this young woman making artwork. What did you think?
To have them call me and tell me about a young lady from Compton, which is such a history for us with the music, and that I didn't realize how young she was till she got there. But when we got to the museum and I saw her piece, I realized that we were successful at reaching somebody with the P-Funk theories and metaphors, and that somebody had gotten it really good. When I seen her, I'm expecting her to be somebody older, that grew with the music. But to see her and see how she had interpreted at such a young age, it reinforced my feelings that we had succeeded around Compton, and outside of the music, but all the theory of funk. I mean, that was enough to let me know this is a whole new concept. Like she said, sampling visuals and tell that story, and reignited my whole thing of creativity. I'm out here trying to, you know, make music and get into the paint thing myself. She didn't even know that.
I actually wanted to ask you about that. So, I know that you have started painting and that I went and saw your exhibition. I think it was last year at Jeffrey Deitch in Los Angeles. I was there the day Lauren had made this beautiful, like, stage, and you and some of the Funketeers were performing, but there was also a painting show. You had a straight up legit painting show. And I wanted to ask you, 1, if you had started painting had you always painted, or did you paint out of your relationship with Lauren?
I had started painting back in the 80s, early 90s, doodling, like I said, and I had a bunch of artists around myself, like Overton Lord, who did the Parliament album and Bootsy's album covers. We had Pedro Bell, who did the Funkadelic stuff. So we was always around the art, like the other fans were, and I really fell in love with it because it was a means of occupying my time and catching people off guard that didn't know that I did that at all, and I could make a concept out of it. And like I said, in talking to her, it reignited that wide open.
What's the difference for you between making music and making paintings?
I'm glad you asked that because as I tried, as I started painting, I realized that other part of art, you have to be able to intellectualize it. You have to be able to like talk about it and tell what it is that how you do it. I had went through that with the music already because I started out as a doo-wop singer and working at Motown, which was refined, sophisticated producing, writing of songs. And right about the time we got a hit record, psychedelic came in and rock and roll, which was the exact opposite of that, which where we used to be trying to be smooth, clear, and clean. Feedback and noise became the feeling. You had to make the interpretation. Then you had to explain why you went from Motown to that. So once I started painting, I realized, and I'm colorblind too. That's another thing. So I had to so I have to intellectualize who, what it is I'm looking at. I never thought of it like that. It's just light and dark, or shades, fading, and another thing. I was a barber. I'm a barber, so I know how to fade. I know the concept of shades, so I could do it without knowing the color. I could do it by value. So, but it took me to think about music, the values, the tones, all of them, both of them have the same thing, tones and colors. You see colors one way, but I can see colors by feeling the same way I do music. Because I didn't go to school for art, but then again, I didn't go to school for music. I never wrote music, you never played an instrument. But I ended up being a producer and the arranger and the writer, but directing those feelings.
One of the things is I was thinking about both of your work, and I was thinking if I was going to explain what you share as artists, one of the biggest things I think you share is an incredible relationship to the collective.
I'll refer to my grandmother's backyard. Yeah, so when I first started making work and it was like a scale that just wasn't manageable by me and that was like obvious to my grandmother, to my friends, folks who weren't uh up until that point interested in helping me collaborate on the sculpture, they just out of the necessity of getting it done and like love, were like, we need to help you. And so I could remember making a float and my grandmother called up the church and called up my aunts. Um, at that same moment, the Raiders were playing. So my dad's cousins were over. Kids were riding by on the bikes and hopped off. And in that moment, I thought, like, how beautiful it could be to sort of co-author these love letters, to my neighborhood, with my neighborhood, and not decide what the meaning should be or what the form should be, um, and then assign that to people. It was, like, at the time, very, like, sort of freestyle, free form, it's all of us. It was as much as my little cousin's London's work as it was mine. Now it's changed because there's much more at stake, and I'll just say I'm trying to get back to that groove again.
Do you think listening to Clinton and Funkadelic as a kid got you some of that big vision or that idea that you could make something with all those other people?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I could be in the band at the time. I genuinely thought, like, I thought they're gonna be touring forever. I'm going to be in this band, and I would write it in my journal. Um, and as I got older, I was like, "Oh, fuck, I don't play an instrument like that. What am I gonna do?" And so I thought, "Oh, well, I could be a sculptor in the band, and, like, it's gonna be great," you know? But yeah, definitely just seeing once YouTube came out and I was able to see the tours from, like, 76, 79, it's like, "Whoa," it's a little bit of everybody contributing to, like, this beautiful, like, sort of funk opera of stuff.
Mm.
What she just said was a perfect replica of how I felt when I saw Motown and saw what Smokey Robinson was doing as a new thing called a songwriter, not only for the Miracles, but for the Temptations, for Marvin Gaye. And Barry Gordy had a stable of writers and producers who were superstars. To me, being a writer, I knew all the producers, the writers, and Motown was someplace I wanted to be. I ended up working for Barry Gordy's wife in New York. Him and her broke up, split up. So I got out to Detroit, found my way around Detroit and tried to get into Motown. We auditioned with Martha Reeves and trying to be part of that family. We went through all of that. I got a hit record called I Just Want to Testify. So now I'm in Detroit, but it wasn't with Motown. It was a company down the street, across the street from them. But it was a hit record. Still, my dream was always to do what Motown did because psychedelic came out. So we were Funkadelic, now we Parliament and Funkadelic. I could do what I did at Motown. I could do what Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, and all them were doing with the other new music. We had Parliament, now we got Funkadelic, our little brothers, who's the band, and they were much younger than us, and we became really hot with that. We run into Bootsy, who had just left James Brown. He was gonna be, he was gonna play with us for a minute because our bass player and guitar player went to Motown. They stayed with Motown, working with the Temptations and stuff. So now we got Bootsy. Now we got all these musicians. We don't find nobody, but we keep getting larger.
I have a question. How did you find Bernie Worrell?
Bernie Worrell was part of the Funkadelic right from the get go. He
Okay.
was right. All of them were from Plainfield, New Jersey. Eddie
Did you
Hazel,
meet him in the
Bernie,
barber shop?
in the barbershop.
Okay.
All of them. Bernie used to get a whipping for coming around and getting his hair done in my barbershop.
Yeah.
You know, he's
Wow.
14, 13 years old.
Yeah.
So how do you guys so you have all these other people that you're working with. How do you guys negotiate the difference between, like, the marquee name and the not so marquee name?
Well, we like that kind of trouble because our thing was not to be a band per se. We wanted to be like rock and roll bands and Beatles, where the fans knew everybody in the band.
Yeah.
They knew the guitar player, they knew the drummer. You know them by name.
You know, the horn section, Fred Wesley and the
Maceo
horny
Parker.
horns.
Yeah, you knew everybody because everybody was there because they wanted to be a star. You know, that's why they were there. So even the roadies ended up being our musicians in the band. Oftentimes, that's the way it was. And the marquee was, we didn't really care. It was Parliament, Funkadelic, P-Funk, Bootsy. We really didn't care. We felt like we was all of those things. I knew it was going to be a problem, but it was a problem that I like having. It's a problem I would like fixing up doing what we're doing now, analyzing it and talking about it. But to stop and do that while we was making music, we didn't want to do that because I knew that wouldn't last. Fads come and go. So I was gonna ride it till the spaceship run out of gas, come back and try to do another one of those, go in the water and do it. And at the same time, you got to worry about lawyers and managers around you. They see this gold mine of talent. They come to each one of them individually.
Mm.
You want a deal, you know? And so I tried to get them all deals while they were there. And if the brides would have got a hit, I was bridesmaid. That's the way we felt about each other. Whoever got the hit record, that's who we become.
I want to ask y'all about Afrofuturism. You know, if you look up Afrofuturism online, George Clinton, Funkadelic, you are part of the essential DNA of the movement that we now call Afrofuturism. And Lauren, when we talk about your work, we definitely like that terminology is almost always part of the conversation. And I guess I'm curious, one for George, did you know you were making Afrofuturism? Was that something you were conscious of? Like, or is that a term that came later and then you thought about it?
No, I kind of got into that late 50s, early 60s with jazz musicians and, like Sun Ra, Pharoah Sanders, and jazz musicians. They did that way out of space type of concept. That was their, you know, and it was black jazz, but it was far out. Then Jimi Hendrix did the same thing with rock and roll. He took that to a spaced out place. And so when we did Maggot Brain, Free Your Mind, Your Ass Will Follow, I kind of knew then that it was Afro, it was blues from the 30s and 40s. That's what Eric Clapton them played. So I knew that it's a black history of um of black music. But then you got Motown, which was the future at that time. All of that mixed. That's what we did when we tried to mix Motown with all the old jazz and the rock
Mm,
and roll. That we considered Afrofuturism. Sun Ra was like the epitome of it
right.
at that time. And Jimi Hendrix was the rock and roll version of it. And then you had Miles and A lot of Pharaoh Saunders who played with the concept of off planet type of thing. So that black futuristic as a concept to me, we thought about the definitely thought about the time we did Maggot Brain. We was definitely knew that America Eats is Young even.
Right. And Lauren, you kind of just come into Afrofuturism. It already exists. You're not like, what does the term mean for you?
It's not my term. I mean, I just always thought I learned it when I got to Cal Arts. They were like, "You're the Afro future." It's like, okay. I'm gonna not to be a super fan, but I am. I'm gonna just say I think I'm funking around for fun, and it's a term that's a bit washed out for me. I respect it, and it definitely when I learned it, it was like sort of a North Star, but, I know certainly I'm building imaginative landscapes, but they're definitely inspired by P-Funk that was, beaming me up to, Chocolate City, and I'm kicking it with pharaohs, and I'm dodging Cernos, but it's not about taking flight to the stars and starting over. It's not about escapism. It's about the here now and South Central, inspired by like a P-Funk affect and attitude. So I appreciate the language, but it's not one that I use. I hope people don't hate me for saying that,
No,
but
I think that girl, you would not be the first artist to reject like a term like that.
they're gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm anti-black. I went to Yale. I'm a sellout." Oh god,
no, no, you're young enough.
it's been a long week, and it's
You're young enough to do that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I was actually glad glad to hear it because I had been a part of it, and it was something for me to collect around new that get me back into the and plus I'm into the Anunnakis anyway and
yeah,
the
yeah, and the dope
Dogons
dollar. No,
and
totally.
all of that. So I'm already into it. But for you, I can understand it. To That's a good defense. To that like you are all of it. You are definitely
It's that, like, I
Afrofuturist.
show up, people are like, "Afrofuturism," and I'm
Oh yeah,
like I mean, just since 2010, and I'm like, "Actually, you know that song, How Do You View You?" Or
yeah.
do you know Ain't Nothing But a Jam? Or do you know Uncle Jam?
That's funny because Overton feels the same way. He didn't want to go for it.
We're gonna collaborate, Helen.
I know y'all are gonna collaborate. You wanna tell me about it?
Well, we're figuring it out,
Uh-huh.
but we're gonna do, like, an amazing show that pays homage to Parliament with, like, fellow Funketeers it's also, like, an intergenerational response
Right.
to
Hmm.
this, so I'm manifesting right now. So everyone from Fishbone to Red Hot Chili Peppers to Kendrick to Kamazi. And so I've been working with George's grandkids to figure this out. And we're like on it.
I'm gonna manifest it with you. I have one last question for the two of you. I have a lot of warm feeling in my heart talking to the two of you today. And I realize that one of the reasons I have it is because of the intergenerational nature of your friendship. I think intergenerational friendships are they're rare and I think they're sacred. And I guess I wonder if each of you could say, is there something you've learned about in the world from the other one based on your age, based on how many years you've been on here on planet Earth? Like, George, is there something that Lauren has shown you because she's young? And Lauren, is there something George has shown you because he's an elder? Or are you just on the same astral plane and the age doesn't matter? Like, I'm just really curious how it works.
I think it's the same plane because I couldn't analyze it at first, but I go out of my way to relate to the next generation and the generations before that, every generation come in, even when they get on your nerves. Like with music, when they change in music, it really gets on your nerves until you get familiar with it and allow yourself to become acquainted with it. And you can end up enjoying it like everybody else. I can predict that musically. I can hear Cardi B and tell you that's gonna be a star, not because of her obvious qualities, but just the nerve and her whole body language that she knew what she was doing, and you can tell which ones, like Kendrick Lamar. I could tell when he came around that this is an old man. It was easy to relate. She surprised me because she did it with our stuff and went back and understood it the way we did it years and years ago.
I love that you could admit that the new music gets on your nerves, and then you've gotta, like, make your peace with it. Lauren, how about you? What have you learned from George now that you guys are friends that maybe you couldn't have learned if you'd just been listening to the music?
Well, now I'm like, I'm not just seeing it on a screen or from a stage and like interpreting what I think I know. It's like I've gotten to know George and like his like super wonderful, amazing wife Carlon, and like I know people who like live with the funks in their heart and like to the like it's like bulletproof. It's just so beautiful. It's the essence. And it's like going to eat with them, hanging out, us just sitting down. It's like coming to my studio, hanging out in a green room. It's just like it's the aura. And I'm like, wow, I if I could forever hold on to that, maybe I also could empower imaginations and hearts in the way that like this collective has for me. Because it's like it's the real deal Holyfield. It's not just like putting on the costume and performing and taking it off.
I've been to the Met rooftop now a couple of times, and I've watched people interact with your rooftop commission. Man, like, the emotional outpouring from just everyday people up on the roof at the Met is so intense, and it feels so beautiful and authentic. So,
Tight. Thank you.
well, thank you for the work, Mr. Clinton. Thank you for every party I ever went to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks,
Thank
George.
Good seeing you, Lauren.
Dialogues is produced by David Zwirner. If you like this episode, please follow, rate, and review us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. It really does help the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you join us here next time.